Welcome, Worthy Restoration viewers. Today I'm going to be putting back all the parts that were missing out of this LC Torana that's behind me. It's an LC GTR 1970 Indy orange Torana. There wasn't much left to do on this car because you would have seen in the previous videos that I've actually taken a fair bit of these parts out. I've sent them off to be refurbished. I've done some refurbishments myself, and now it's time to put them back in. The first thing that's going to go back in is the body catch. A lot of these are all badly worn, so these go off and get refurbished and then they get re-zinced. Any dents knocked out of them, and also a little bit of straightening that might need to take place along the edges. So that's going in along with the correct re-zinced bolts. I'll be putting that one in first. I do have a glovebox lid, and this glovebox lid is done in a wrinkle finish. So it's not exactly the same as an LC GTR Torana came out of the factory like, but it's very, very close. And this will get put back in to this particular car today as well, because this car is going to be handed back over to the customer tomorrow afternoon. And I wanted to specifically spend some time on the Heaterbox. So the Heaterbox you would have seen me pull out, and the Heaterbox was pretty rattly in the last video. There was things falling around inside of it. It didn't really sound that great when you turned it on, and the fan motor was on its way out. So the Heaterbox has been refurbished. I'll just bring this back, which is what we have here. I'll just move this out of the way. Now, these particular heater boxes are very, very hard to find. They're especially the original ones that haven't been played with, and also just even trying to find them in general is really difficult now. I haven't seen a full one of these for sale for about 3 or 4 years, so it's very difficult to find these in this sort of condition. However, this one's gone off and it's had some pretty special love given to it, because it was in a reasonable state of ill repair that needed to be fixed. And I'll walk you through some of these things that have taken place on this heater box, but special mention goes to Mark Davies. He actually does a lot of the restoration work for me on these heater boxes. I pretty much supply the parts, any parts that are missing. It's a great team for us to work together to bring these back together, because he knows how I want them to be, and also if there's issues around the parts, we can have that conversation. We know what we're doing to locate some of these parts. However, on the original LC GTR Toranas and normal Toranas, they had a silver base. It wasn't painted. This has been painted now, but this particular silver base was more of like a zinc kind of finish. So it was still was silver. A lot of people think that these are all painted black, but they're not. They were painted a silver color, and I've had the heater motor sent off and completely refurbished, which isn't a cheap part to do. And I'll actually talk about the costs of this particular heater box when I go to finish this video. But we also clean up all the terminals, and if you have a look inside the heater box, you'll actually see some of the mechanics of the inner workings of the heater box, and all of that has been re-zinced. Any parts that are broken will change over for parts that obviously aren't broken, and then tested to make sure that it all works. Also test the heater core as well. Even though I know that this one's come out of a working vehicle, the one behind me, it still always pays just to make sure there's no leaks in it. And then it gets a full gasket kit that goes through the entire box, and this one will be shortly ready to go back into the vehicle. But I think one of the important things to sort of highlight is that this has all been refurbished and tested, so that you can see that it's in the condition that it's in now. And the good thing is, if I look at mechanics of the actual box itself, this should be fairly smooth, which is for the vents. It's actually a 2-factor vent configuration, where it's opening up a vent here, and it's also closing a vent here and or opening it, depending on what happens. And you hear that as you move it, and it's all fairly loose and it works really well. And it didn't work like this when we got it, and obviously when you shake it, there's no noise. That's normally a sign of fairly loose parts, and there's new foams and everything that have been put into this particular box, and this is just what we do to bring these back to life. A lot of them have bulging here, because obviously during winter there's a fair bit of heat that comes through these heater cores, and the heater cores can on occasion bulge a little bit of the top here, but there's not much that you can do about that at the moment. This top has actually been resprayed. Unfortunately, it's not in the condition where I could go back to an original look because it has had repairs. But you know, discussing some of those repairs, there's been repairs around the base here, which you can't see anymore, but you know, there's normally bits and pieces that are missing on the actual heater top. It's just got damaged, and quite common, not unusual. So we've made the best and the most out of what we can here. Also re-zinced all the clips that hold it all back in, and obviously tested it all as well. So the next phase is this is going to go in the car, and you're going to see me start putting this back in yet again with time-lapse photography. The first thing that needs to happen is that this particular vent here has to come off for it to go into the car, and then once I get it in the car, this actually needs to go back in and get installed correctly to hold the heater box in, along with all the screws that hold it in down the bottom. So come with me on that journey. I'm going to start working on that now, and then you'll see the finished product of this in the car shortly, along with all the other work that I'll take you through just to tidy this car up. There, right, okay. Okay, so the heater box has been fully refurbished, the heater base has been blasted, everything's been re-zinced, new parts used where possible, so it's going to go back into the car, which is still not an easy feat. It's just as painful to put back in as it is to take out. So it starts with making sure that you've got all your gaskets on, so there's no leakage with water when it gets washed for whatever reason, which obviously I've got on this because it's a new gasket set. But also lining it up and making sure that it goes in. It goes in a very specific way. So the heater box goes in on an angle. Then once it actually sits in flush with the actual car itself, then you can put the lid back on, which is for the vent. So there's going to be a little bit of mucking around here to get that done, but once it's done, it'll sit quite nicely, especially with all the new gaskets sitting on it. Okay, that's in so far, but it actually needs to line up with all of the screws and bolts that will be holding it underneath the car. I'm just going to drop it in. Hasn't clicked in yet. There we go. That's it. So it's all nice and flush now. So what I need to do is get underneath the car, inside the vehicle, and I need to then apply around about 8 bolts. Sorry, 8 nuts that go back in to hold in the screws and hold it nice and firm so that the gaskets mesh correctly with the actual firewall here part of the vehicle. So I'll get busy and start doing that. All right, so installing this is just the reverse of uninstalling it. So you need to go through and find every single screw, a thread that's coming through the firewall here, and put the nuts back on it. But the hard part's definitely going to be underneath this area here, which is what operates your heater mechanisms. So it's pivotal that these are connected the right way so that all these controls up the top here work correctly. It's the part where you have to be a complete and utter contortionist, because a guy my size, 99 kilos, finds it difficult to. So the vent lid is the next piece to go on once all this is all screwed in correctly and pulled down, but the vent lid has to go, and you can actually see there's an arrow there, so it's telling you to push it up, and there's enough play in these holes here that you can get it in, and the holes will actually line up with the bolts around about here, and then you can just push them back and it actually clicks into place. So give that a go. And it needs to go in on an angle. There we go. That's clicked in rather well. Now I've got to put all the nuts back on and the washers. Before I do that, I'm going to put the front one in, which is this washer here. And these are special little nuts, which you can't find or buy anywhere. Only particular to this particular heater box, made in Australia. Like a nice little square hex nut on the end. That's to stop them from moving when you screw your bolts onto the top from underneath. Right. So for all intents and purposes, that's all installed at the moment. I've got to put the cables on, and I will also need to put the heater pipes back on as well, and then fill it back up again and make sure everything works, including the motor. I've got to make sure obviously that works for the vent, which it will. Keep watching. Okay. A lot of people make the mistake where they're trying to set up these heater controls and they're setting them up on the wrong setting, the wrong fitting, because the cables here, which are on this particular heater box, which is an LC model variant Torana, are clipped in right near the very end of the cable run. So some people might have it sitting there, for example, which means that you can't open and close your interior vents properly. So it's an important one to note, because you can stuff around with these for a fair while trying to figure out how the hell they actually work, when it's as simple as it needs to be sitting on the very end, this clip, and it holds it, and then it's got enough purchase to push the heater controls to fully open and fully close. Okay, so putting these heater hoses back in isn't really a big deal. You just got to make sure you put some WD-40 on it, which I have already done. The hose for an LCGR actually connects from the bottom to the top of the heater hose. It's a heater box, heater core, and then this return hose here connects back into the thermostat. So I'll chuck those on now. I've got some correct clamps, but they're on back order at the moment. So this car will come back in for some other small adjustments down the track, and I'll just make sure to chuck the correct hose clamps on for this particular model car. These are aftermarket ones, which I really don't like. Worm drive ones. Worm drive. All right, they're on. Now I'm going to put the air filter on, give it a clean up in the engine bay, finish off by bleeding up the brakes, because I changed some of these brake lines. You see in the previous video, they actually had some rust and pitting, and then somebody went and chromed them, so it wasn't really a good safety issue. Replace those, so I'll bleed up these brakes, change the glove box over to a more correct looking glove box with the correct finish on it, clean up the engine bay, and away we go. But it's looking the part. We'll get there. Okay, so the glove box isn't really difficult to do. I mean, there's only a few screws in it, but I don't want to make it more of a correct looking glove box lid, because this is all a nice shiny black, gloss black, and they never came out with that. They actually came out with a wrinkle finish, very similar to this one. So we're going to swap this out. And that's how it's adjusted. Hey folks, if you ever wonder where I work and who I work with, this is my brother. He's the guy that puts all these videos together for you, so keep watching them and enjoy them because he likes making them. A little bit. Okay, so this is the third and final episode of some restoration work and some reassembly work on this particular car. It didn't need a huge amount, but what it did need was just the things that catch your eye when you go to a car show, and also for the customer's peace of mind as well. So some of the key things that have taken place on this car are re-zinking some parts, for example, the bonnet catch here, cleaning up all the ID plates that are on it, completely refurbishing and reinstalling the heater box, painting the master cylinder, re-zinking the master cylinder parts, repainting this the correct color with the right sticker on it, re-zinking the Brisbane built wiper motor, and also changing over the pedals and the parts that are required inside the vehicle for its correct operation. For example, making sure that your pedal rubbers aren't completely broken, so you want to make sure it's safe. And I've changed the accelerator pedal over because that was basically broken as well. Besides all of that, this car will come back again. So this will be back with some other things that need to be corrected. I found a few things that need to be done, but for now, it's time to say goodbye to this 1970 Indy orange GTR. And I hope you've enjoyed the ride. It's gone for 3 episodes. So if you haven't seen the first 2 episodes, I suggest you just go back and have a look in YouTube and go find them because there's a folder there with them. And share this with your friends. Like, enjoy, and there's plenty more of these cars to come. So subscribe, and there'll be more of these next week. So keep watching. By the way, where's my humble servant? Ah, thank you very much, sir. Enjoy.